Welcome to Debating Dating, a podcast with me, Rachel Graham.
And me, Mark Jennings.
We're two single friends, and every episode we'll be discussing our differing perspectives on an aspect of modern dating.
We'll be sharing our honest insights and experiences as platonic pals who are not afraid to give each other the unvarnished truth.
Or laugh at each other's bullshit.
So this week is part 2 of our Bad Dates episode alongside comedian Rob Mulholland. So we'll get back to that shortly. We'll just have a wee catch up with you first of all, Rachel. How are you doing?
Good. I've actually been on a date, which is weird. Now I feel there's a pressure for me to be going on dates, and I've just completely taken a big step away from it. So I'm finally actually have some chat. So that's good. What about you?
How did it go?
Yeah, it was nice. It was fine, but it was yet another outside having like sitting in a park at night type date, and I feel very ready for the restrictions to lift because I don't know how many more times I can sit in a cold park, you know?
Yeah, no, it's not a great place to have sexual intercourse, is it, Rachel?
But gonna try.
So what did it go well then? What was the chat? Did you get on well as a spark?
Oh God. Well, actually, do you know, it's so funny because I feel like every guy that I speak to, I have to like tell them that I'll not talk about it on the podcast.
On the podcast.
And for some reason, this is classic me though. See, as soon as I tell myself not to do something, it just comes out my mouth. Like I just end up chatting about it. It's so bad.
Here you are now talking about your date on the podcast.
Exactly. And on the date, I was thinking, just don't tell him you do a dating podcast. Like he doesn't need to know. And then it felt like I was like harboring a secret. And the whole day I was like, don't mention it. And then I ended up mentioning it and being like, oh, I feel so much better now.
Hi, nice to meet you. Hi, I've got a dating podcast. I can see exactly how that would have went.
That is exactly what happened, actually. Mm-hmm. But how have you been getting on?
You're right. Can't complain.
No comment. Complain.
Fucking no comment. No fucking, no action.
Yeah, I know. Do you know what's so exciting? Like, as soon as the pubs will open, we'll actually have a life again.
I know. Well, it's good to have a summer to look forward to, and I'm quite optimistic about the summer and things opening up, and hopefully things maybe getting a wee bit back to normal. It's hard to like get too carried away because we've kind of been through the ringer a couple of times now. Things seem like they're opening up and only to shut back down. But I think with the vaccine, with the summer, I'm quite optimistic, and hopefully in the not too distant future, we can get back to having terrible dates like the ones we describe in today's episode. Again,
king of the segue.
What can I say?
I can't wait till we have terrible dates again. Bring it back. We'll not just be reminiscing.
I know. But in the meantime, you can listen to us reminisce about some of the bad dates that we've been on in part 2 of our episode with Rob Mulholland on bad dates.
I don't know what it is for you guys, but I feel like the common thread of just a bad date is just someone just talking about themselves and not asking you any questions. Like, have you ever had that?
Yeah, or the opposite, where it's like they just don't have anything back. Like the worst is just lack of chat. That's honestly like I would rather be with a psycho, like than someone who just has nothing. Where you ask them a question, and they'll just give a flat like one word answer, and it's just like, can you expand on it? I've got some time to kill.
Maybe bear with me here. See that first submission? Maybe that guy was just on a really boring date where there wasn't enough chat. He thought, maybe I'll just start a fight and that'll give us something to talk about, and then he ends up getting bottled in the hospital. Maybe that happened.
Maybe.
Well, that's a very charitable view on that situation.
No, you are right though, Rob. Like, I think that that is because we were sort of saying at the start, like it's hard to think of a lot of dates. I can't think of that many dates that I've been on that went, oh, that was, absolutely awful. I've not got these like horror stories that some people seem to have. I think part of that's being a guy, like you're less likely. I think like you hear a lot of women who've been on dates with guys that have a lot more horror stories.
Because they're going out with men. Like I'm going out with women. Exactly. Women are nice, most of them.
Exactly. But I think for the most part, at the times that spring to mind for me that have been awkward, it is just when you go there and there's just no chat and there's just no spark, no buzz, and there's those awkward silences. And
how quick do you call it?
Well, I remember once I went for a drink with this girl and I was going to meet my mates in town after, right? But we were in town for the date, so I had to pretend to her that I was getting like the train home. So I was like, I went down to Glasgow Central, right, I'll see you later. I like walked into the train station and then like came out 2 minutes later because I was like going back the way we came to like go into town and meet the mates. But I think so basically that's been the worst ones for me. Ones like that, but there's just not a lot of chat, and you're just kind of like, oh god,
I've called one. I've just straight up called one once. Like I've been on a couple of those, but I just straight up after like about half an hour, I was just like, this isn't anything, is it? I was like,
what if she thought it was?
Well, but she's fucking dumb then. Like, it was like excruciating. Like, there was like no conversation. There was just nothing coming back. She was just sort of sat there. And I thought, maybe she was just dead nervous, but that's not who I want to be going out with, to be honest with you. I want to be with someone who's fun. I'm sorry if that makes me a bad person, but you're boring as fuck. I'm going home. I didn't say that. But no, I did just go like I finished my first drink and I was just like, this isn't really anything, is it? I think we should probably just call this here. And she was like, okay. And I was just like, yeah, so, see you later. And I just sort of got out of there pretty quick.
She liked you because you will have had good chat and she
yeah, because I've got great chat. I am great on a fucking date. Yeah. She was not. I'm sorry. You're out. Why would I sit there for the whole night? It was a time when I was going on quite a few dates. I was in the city and single, and like, I just knew, and like, I wasn't attracted to her. There wasn't anything at all. Why would I? I'd bought the first round. She wasn't out of pocket. Why would I waste her time?
And that's actually that's a brave thing to do. No one really does that.
I was
and
so
it's like...
happy afterwards.
What did you do after?
I'd won. I was like, I can't believe that just worked. I'm out. I'm free. Because I've done all the sneaking off, pretending I've got to go.
It's like getting out of school early or something, or like getting out of work.
Yeah, it proper felt like I'd scammed my mum and I got a sick day. I was just like, brilliant. Going to watch Jeremy Kyle all day. Awesome.
I think with that, do you know what it reminds me of, right? So our mate Steve Buchanan, who's a comic as well, like he told me he used to go back from uni on the train, and there's this girl he went to school with that would be on the same train as every day, and they would sit next to each other and they would just chat, but they had like fuck all to chat about. And he said one day, like they were about to go on the train and they just went, should we just like not do this? And then they were like, yeah. And so they both just sat separately and were like so relieved about it.
Different carriages.
I think like we put ourselves through so much torture out of fear of being polite. And it's only as I've got older that I'm able to do this. Like in my 20s I was terrible at it. But I just hit like, you just get a bit more secure in yourself and you just realise you've done it over and over and over, that way of trying to be polite and trying to be nice. There is a point where just ripping the bandage off is the kindest thing forever. Like, I've got a big saying that I always say to my mates when we're having talks about like relationships. 1 to the head, not 3 to the chest, right? Kill them with 1 shot to the head, not 3 to the chest. Because like, if you've got to tell people how you're feeling. If you're not into it, you got to break it off clean. None of this like messing around with it. Just break it off clean. It'll suck, but it'll be quick and it's done.
No, that's so good.
And this is metaphorically, we need to make
yes.
clear.
Oh yeah, don't murder people. I'll make that very clear. Yeah. These are metaphorical bullets.
Yes. No, but that is actually on paper the right thing to do, because I feel like I am on the other end of, I do a lot of cleaning up of bad behaviour, bad communication. I have to talk to my friends being like, they're not being clear, they're saying this, I think they might like me, but they're not saying it. And then it just means that all of us as female friends are having to like sit and decode text messages, analysing amounts of kisses and all this shit, when actually, if someone were just to be honest and say, listen, like this isn't a thing and maybe we should end it, because actually we all want the closure of being like, do you know what, this is not a thing, and and I get it.
So much rather that than like ghosting. Ghosting's brutal.
Yeah.
Like ghosting's so much worse. Just like honestly, like I was always like, you know, there's a couple of times when like a girl would text me and be like, not feeling it, and I'd be like, cool, like, you know, grand, like glad you told me. Like it's definitely much better. And when I learnt finally to start doing that, and it was a long time. I'm not like, you know, I've got a checkered history of like fucking it up loads of times.
Yeah.
But when I finally learnt that, it was a huge, like, game changer for dating, definitely. Just got to be honest with what you want. Like, whether you think that's, you know, the correct thing to say or whatever, you just got to be honest, because it's not going to change.
Yeah, totally.
Very good message.
I didn't...
So, no, sorry, go on, Rachel.
I had that where I wasn't feeling it, and I thought, right, the decent thing is 2 rounds, because I didn't want it to look like he'd bought me a drink and then I was like, bye, bitch. So I did I was like, right, I'll do my round. And then I was like, oh, I'm working really early in the morning. I'm going to have to go. And he was like a bit surprised and was like, all right, okay. And then I did that thing of being like, so are you going to go and get your train? And he was like, oh, yeah, I'm going to go and get my train. And I was like, okay, thank you so much. Gave him a hug. I was like, thank you. Have a good night, blah, 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 bye. And then I waited till he walked around the corner, and then I went to a house party round the other corner, and everyone was like, how's your date? And I was like, shite, let's have a bevy, let's have a dance. But then
I've done that from leaving the date to go meet mates.
It's
definitely.
so good. It's so fun. And then literally he messaged me the next morning being like, hey, just so you know, I just didn't feel like there was a connection between us. I was like, fuck off. I felt like that. He'd sensed it and been like...
you wanted to be the executioner?
Yeah.
Like, you don't get to dump me, I dump you.
Yeah, you dump first.
Just taking back to Rachel, what you were saying, so that is quite a big thing. You hear a lot of women saying about the guy just talking about himself the whole time.
Yeah.
So like that, because I wasn't always aware that this is a thing. I don't know about you, Rob. Like I've only became aware of this in recent years, that this is a male thing that apparently a lot of guys do.
Because you're all chatting too much to even have the silence to have that thought.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I'm aware of it because I think it's my biggest danger on a date. It's the thing I have to watch out for. Because the problem is I am better at telling stories than most people I'll be on a date with.
I'm a professional comedian, actually.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, but I think I'm quite good at that, measuring it back. But the impulse is there. I'm just like, no, you just stop, just listen. It's a much more powerful move to be listening, definitely. But yeah, I imagine a lot of blokes just.
I do consciously try and stop myself and ask, because I'm so aware of it. I think I would like to think I do it naturally anyway, but because I'm aware I don't want to be that guy that just goes on all the time. I will if I think I've started to talk a wee bit too long, I'll make sure to stop and ask them as well, just to not be that guy.
Yeah,
it happens all the time. Honestly, I would say I've been on quite a few dates with comedians, and if you imagine that men just generally are bad for it, you can realise that I've had many a date where I've been like, oh, so I'm just a listening participant here. I'm just an audience
I've been in green
member.
rooms like that, let alone the date. Yeah.
But it happens all the time, and it's just frustrating because I do understand that nerves play a part, and I think actually I'm bad for being like, okay, there's a silence and I will have to fill it. And it's only in recent years that I'm like, do you know what? If there's a silence, and maybe then they might get the hint that maybe they should fill it or ask something about me. But I'm not exaggerating. So many dates are like you're just like, leave it, and they don't know anything about you. They will literally know my name. And I'm like, well, I know their life history, I know their medical records, I know their granny's trauma, know everything about their life and their history. And you're just like, do you know what? It just means that they just don't care about you. So it's that thing of being like, and sometimes you'll try and give hints and be like, oh yeah, well, I also thought that. And then they're like, yeah, cool. So anyway, they said to me, and you're like, oh, okay. And there's a point in the date where you're just like, they're not catching on that they don't actually want to find out anything about you.
Yeah.
that is mental to me though, because like it's one thing to go on a bit about yourself. Is I think everybody is quite is keen and doing, and I think as comedians, like you're a wee bit more. You're a bit more likely to do it because one, you're used to talking and all that anyway, and two, part of our job is all wrapped up in ourselves and who we are and all that kind of thing. And
we're all raging narcissists. Let's get it on the table.
Call it what it is.
Well, that's one way to look at it. I don't think it's always necessarily the case, but I think if you're talking about your work, you're kind of talking about yourself as a stand-up. But it's mad to me that like it wouldn't occur to somebody throughout the course of an entire day to at least ask the other person one question. That's nuts.
See, here's my theory on what these guys are doing. This is my theory on what's going on in their head. Yeah. You're right, they don't care about you as a person yet, Rachel. Yeah. I think they want to sleep with you and they know that. And often, unfortunately for men, that's all they can know until they have.
Oh,
and then
really?
At that point, they can be like, oh no, actually, I like this person. It wasn't just that. So that might be a factor. And they're trying to give you the CV and show off to you. And they already are like, oh, I like her already because she's pretty and nice. And that's enough. That's all they need. So then they're like, oh, here's all these things about me that you might like. I think that's what they're doing. They're trying to. They're fucking it up, but like that's their thinking, I think.
But I think guys, even just chatting to you, Mark will be like, well, it's easier for a woman to pull. You're more likely to be able to get with someone on a night out. You have said that.
Completely.
Well, I also want to stand up and say I totally agree with that. But it doesn't mean that you're going to get a caliber of guy. It means there are men available constantly. Yes. But it doesn't mean they're good, but they are available. Yeah. Whereas the male perspective on that is we'd be delighted if there was a constant stream of 3 out of 10s available.
Oh, God. It is a caliber thing, though. It is that thing of being like, oh, it is easy to pull in a night out, but you want to pull the person that you want to pull, definitely.
Yeah, of course.
Do you have said that though?
No, I have, but I don't like out of context. It sounds bad, but Rob sort of summed it up in a way for me because I've been on nights out and I've seen from the women's perspective how guys get in their own way of it happening, even if you want to. So it's not as straightforward as guys always think. Because the girl can be like, right, you coming back, that, and the guy's not taking the hint or whatever. There's all it's not quite straightforward. But to go back to your point though, Rob, that's a brilliant. I think that's a brilliant point about the whole no asking questions thing, because basically what you're saying is it's like the guy's treating the date like a job interview, and like if you go for a job interview, you don't ask the person that's wanting to hire you. You don't ask them, what was your previous work history and all that. So by the same token, that's what the guys on the date, if they're seeing the whole interaction as like they already like the girl and they're trying to qualify themselves. It's just like, here's my experience and here's my qualifications.
Rather than it's a mutual bonding thing.
So that's so interesting. That's an interesting way of looking at it. But still, you would still think like, fucking hell, man,
it's not fucking dumb. Like they should learn like that it's really not the way to go about it.
But there's a presumption as well that we know that they fancy us, and I think that the first date especially is me working out if they fancy me or not. So like if they're not actually asking me anything, like they're literally just getting it from looks of going, and then if they're just chatting about themselves, it's not like they're going to be like, and I really like your eyes, so you're not even going to get that little moment of confirmation. Sure. And you have to wait till the kiss at the end to be like, oh right, okay, they're into me. It just seems that they're not actually interested in me.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I'll be honest with you though, guys in general being crap was the biggest helping factor for me dating. Like men have set the bar so low that if you're like half good chat on a date, it's brilliant. The world's your oyster. If you just ask questions and sit and listen and genuinely ask, then the killer move, right? This is the secret. This is the real story of the game for anyone listening who wants to crack the code, right? Listen to the answer that they've given you and then ask another relevant question about something that they've just said in that answer. and watch women fall at your feet, amazed that you have managed to do such a thing.
I'm getting excited by the idea of that. I'm like, keep talking. Yeah.
This is like erotica, isn't it?
I know. For women who are single in lockdown, I'm like, tell me more. Just can you whisper it into the mic, please? And maybe tap a little cup.
That's quite sad, isn't it, when you think about it?
Really
That's
sad.
what it would really take, But fucking hell. But there you go. There's Rob Mulholland's tips on picking up women. There you go. You can read his new book coming out this summer.
Rob Mulholland's Game.
Yeah, just in time for lockdown ending.
I think I'd like that book to be out in the world. It's a positive message. Be nice and listen. That's the tips. It's worked for me. I've got a dead nice one.
Yeah.
Right, so let's move on. So have you got anything else to add, Rachel?
No.
We'll just move on to the
Are
next
you
submission.
hyper aware of asking me questions now, not talking over me? So I'm so sorry, Rachel. Would you like to take the space?
I don't mind talking over you. It's like
Yeah, he doesn't want to sleep with me, so
No.
it's like fine.
like fucking podcast a whole different kettle of fish, right?
Shh, the men are talking.
So Rob, you were saying earlier on, so you used to sleep on just a mattress, as they call it in America, a futon. I was sleeping on a futon.
Yeah,
Is that right?
I was mattress on the floor for a little bit. I lived for a while rent free above a pub with a bunch of other comedians, and one of the comedians I lived with, partner ran the pub. Like, she was the landlady, and so we had the flat up there with like hourly rent, and we all had troubling alcohol problems, and I had a little mattress on the floor. Yeah, it was the most fun period of my life, and it nearly killed me.
Wow. Well, with that in mind, that's quite an interesting sort of environment, I would imagine, to bring a date back to. This
There's
next
a lot.
submission, yeah.
Did you ever have that? Like, did you ever be like, welcome to my mattress?
Like, I think if you're on a date with me, you got to expect a mattress on the floor. Like, you've seen me, you know my whole vibe. Like, anything above that, I think, is a bonus.
It's 6'7". I mean, it's maybe not even so much the width as the length that I would be concerned about of a mattress.
That's what
on
we
the
all
floor.
say, Mark.
Well, like, my feet do dangle a little bit off the bed, so that was the worst thing about having the mattress on the floor. Like, my toes had hit the floor. Get carpet burn on my big toe.
Well, this next submission is about a date that leads back to the bedroom, and it is about what the bed and all of that looked like. So I'll just get this one up now.
So me and this guy had been texting for a little while and decided to meet up for our first date, but I had to travel to Edinburgh, so it was almost guaranteed I'd have to stop up there. He was 20 minutes late meeting me from the train station, which was an epic start. We then went out for some drinks and got back to his flat quite late and decided to go to bed. Literally, as I walked into his bedroom, he was like, "Oh yeah, by the way, do you mind changing my bed? I just didn't have time this morning. Yeah, the sheets are in there. I'm just going for a pee." So I was standing there like, "Are you for real?" So I ended up changing his bed for him so I could sleep in his bed. But it was the cringiest thing because his sheets were threadbare, his mattress was stained, pillows literally looked like they were older than me. It was honestly the grossest thing I've had to endure.
Oh my god, that is disgusting.
That's brutal. Like, at least I will say this: my mattress on the floor, I had 6 sheets and really nice pillows, right? Because I was like, if you're sleeping on the mattress on the floor, you've at least got to have dead good pillows. And I had 2 really good pillows as well in case there was a guest. I didn't cheap out. I got both really nice pillows.
Listen,
So-
it's a mattress on the floor, but it's a 4-poster mattress on the floor.
I mean, like, I didn't ask anyone to change my sheets for me.
I mean, that's awful as well, because that's like reeking of like sexism and misogyny to be like, all right, love, just like nip in and change my sheets for me. Fuck right off.
Like, I've definitely like had when I was at uni, particularly, I used to have like emergency tidies, I called them, where
Yeah.
like I'd go out, I didn't know I was going to be meeting someone, you know, and they've come back, and then like they'd have to stay in my kitchen while I whizzed around my room. But I didn't go, it's a bit messy in there. Would you mind tidying it? Like, I did the tidying. I didn't want them to see the filth I lived in.
It's really bad because you then feel really like disappointed in yourself. Like there's been times where I've gone back to someone's house and like there was like dishes on the floor. I had to like climb over the dishes. Like their bed was like disgusting, like actually disgusting. And I still wanted to sleep with them, unfortunately. And I was like weighing up in my head of being like, you will really judge yourself, like, and the fact that you will sleep with this person in these dirty sheets and then have to stay over. And then I just had to live with the shame because it was very good. Like it almost made it okay how good it was. But at the same time, I felt dirty and I felt like really sad about my own self-worth.
Negging with plates. That's what that is. Little negging plates dropped on the floor. It's worked a charm, hasn't it?
I mean, to go back to what Rob was saying earlier on about guys not really caring and they'll still sleep with a woman anyway, but I feel like if I've ever went back to a girl's house, like sometimes I think like, you know, the girl's bedroom's been messy, but it could be like fucking Tracy Emin's bed and I would still sleep with them. I wouldn't really give a fuck, to be honest. Like
honestly, if like they just opened the bedroom door and it was just to outside and it was just by the bins, they were like, there it is, this is where I live. And I was like, okay, well I guess this is where we are.
I would also say, and maybe this is me being very stereotypical, but I think like there's a difference between like a man's messy dirty and a woman's messy dirty.
You've not been in as many women's bedrooms as I have.
Oh, really?
Like there are some dirty women out there.
Oh, really?
Is what I would say. Yeah, like I've seen some sights, especially like it's the sort of women I go out with. I go out with a lot of like artsy women,
yeah.
A lot of mad women as well. I like that. So, you know.
Yeah, attract what you are, Rob.
This is it, man. It's get it mirrored back, you know. Like, oh, you dropped out of art school. Oh, what's that? Homemade black flag tattoo? Yes, please. You know. So you end up in some situations, yeah, like I've been in like squats and stuff and like where it's like there's a layer of grim.
Oh no. Okay,
yeah, so
well
like,
maybe
I think,
have
look, obviously I think that it will heavily skew towards male. We are in general a bit grosser. And there's more stuff like my girlfriend took the piss out of me for ages because I only had one towel. Well, I just only had one. I only needed one towel.
You need more than one towel? What about when it's wet?
I have more than one towel now, but then I didn't need more than one towel, to be honest with you.
But what did you do? Because when it was wet, you'd have to wait for it to dry.
Yeah.
That's like that riddle.
That's what I did. I just waited for it to dry, yeah. I would have a shower in the morning and pop it on a radiator, and then it was dry.
You really need
to use it the
to
next
treat
day.
See, Rob, I could have imagined you being one of the people that need to have a towel in their body and then one for their hair. Do you know what I mean?
I have a theory about, and I don't know, this is what it's like. So being Scottish, you have to always question whether it's a Scottish men thing or a British men thing. So maybe you can answer this. But I feel like Scottish men all have the same duvet. And it's always a bed really close. Mark's pulling the face, but I bet you I've made this judgment because he has this duvet cover. Because
you've never seen my fucking duvet cover, Rachel, don't?
We have Zoomed, okay? But I do think that it's definitely a thing where they'll have like a grey duvet cover that's like got like it's like checked or like a slight kind of pattern, and it's always a thin duvet, and they'll have their little kind of like they'll have maybe a weird bit of art, and it'll be all kind of like dark blue and dark green or grey, and it's just like really shit bed. Not your bed, Mark, but just a shit bed where I'm just like, do you know what? Just invest a little bit and get a bright colour. Get a white duvet. They all have the same, and also their beds are always very close to the ground, like a racing car bed. Do you know what I mean? And I'm just like, I would like to be a bit elevated here.
Yeah, but you could be too elevated. Bunk beds would be worse.
Oh, I have definitely. Oh my god, this is so embarrassing.
Have you shagged someone on a bunk bed?
more than once, unfortunately.
It brings a whole new meaning to. Do you want me to go on top?
I'll see you in the morning. No, I've shagged in a bunk bed, but like that was like at a party, and it was obviously probably shouldn't have done that. But then I've also my ex-boyfriend lived at home for a bit, and he had a bunk bed, but his bunk bed was a double bed on the bottom and a single bed on the top. So shagged in his bed, but also sometimes if I was staying over, this is really weird, and I don't know why I didn't think it was weird at the time. I would stay in his double bed with him, and his little brother would sleep on the top bunk. Obviously, we didn't do anything, but I was like, why did I think that was normal? I'd be like, okay, like, good night, Jack. Like,
it's the fucking Brady Bunch here.
Yeah, that is weird. Would you like shag and then be like, right, you can come in now, we're done?
No, that we'd always wait till they were like out the house, or we'd like go somewhere else. But it was really not a good time for my sex life. It was maybe about 4 months, and it wasn't fun.
It's the worst living at home. It's brutal.
It is.
Well, I've got a theory about women's bedrooms, Rachel.
Okay, well, hit me then.
I don't think I've ever been in a woman's bedroom who doesn't have some sort of collage of them and all their fucking friends from over the years, most of whom they probably don't even fucking like.
Polaroids clipped to a bit of string.
Yeah, there's some sort of board. There's always some
like
sort of
board, like a cork board with like all the pictures, and then maybe like some little like words of like affirmation.
I feel very angry because you have described my bedroom, you fuckers.
Of course we have.
I know.
Yeah, no. Oh no, like I can like I know what your bedroom looks like.
Oh yeah.
I've not been in it, but I have been in it.
Also, those comedians you've been on loads of dates with, Rachel, we talk, okay? We talk. We are always looking for more submissions. We're thinking we're going to get to the stage where the episodes will be a bit more generalised, where we'll maybe be talking about different aspects of dating during the one episode. So, you know, if we've got a submission on ghosting and a submission on catfishing and a submission on a bad date or a submission on one night stands or whatever it happens to be. So if you've got anything you'd like to hear us discuss at all about dating, just do get in touch. Send us any wee stories you've got, anything that you want to hear our opinion on, whether it's, you know, a kind of hot button issue or you know, anything like that in the realm of the dating world. Do not hesitate to get in touch and I just send us a wee DM voice note on Instagram or whatever, or just send us a message and we can always read them out. Yeah, I am so nosy as well, so I obviously enjoy reading all of the stories. Yeah, I mean, obviously we'll keep them anonymous as well. I mean, Rachel's nosy, but she's bound her mouth shut so she doesn't talk about any of these fucking things. If I don't know a name, then I can't slip up and say, don't worry. I enjoy hearing. It makes me feel good as well, because I think that I've got horrific stories, and then sometimes you'll hear something and be like, oh my god. Yeah, you guys make us feel better about ourselves, is what we're saying. And we hope we do the same to you as well. So please don't hesitate to get in touch. That's at Debate and Dating on Instagram. Or you can obviously email us at debateanddatingpod@gmail.com. But we're looking for more and more submissions. So if you've got anything you'd like to hear us chat about in future episodes, please do get in touch. We've got one more submission to look at here today. So this one's been sent in by a guy who agreed to go on this date that turned out a wee bit different than I was expecting.
The first one was actually matched with a girl on Bumble, like the first time I really had it, and her profile was just full of cupcakes, so I must have been like more hungry than horny, but anyway, it ended up with a good chat, but she was all very milfy, kind of like Nigella-esque. But fast forward 45 minutes and she had invited me to like some sex party in the Midland industrial estate in a really shit area of Perth, and I was just standing like playing pool with this guy called Clive, who was like a double glazing salesman. She just spent the rest of the night in some like rotating bed in the middle of this like weird room, getting absolutely railed. I stayed, played a couple of games of pool. It was a very weird vibe. Next thing I just booked an Uber went in to try and say cheerio, but I think she was quite busy. Anyway, that was it. Never seen her again, never swapped numbers, nothing.
Oh my god. I love that he made a friend.
Clive, that's a bromance budding there, isn't it?
I know.
Clive the double glazing salesman. He sounds like an extra in a fucking porn film, doesn't he? Like just playing pool, you know.
That's like, because this is the thing, like, you know, sex parties sound like a good idea, don't they? They sound like they're going to be like titillating and sexy, but then you think about the people who actually go to a sex party, especially one in an industrial estate in Perth.
Yeah,
right?
He said the bad part of Perth, which, if you don't know, Rob, is Perth.
Yeah. I was just struggling to think of a good bit. I've been...
And I'd like to say to our Scottish listeners, this is Perth, Australia, not Perth, Scotland.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, right. I did not know
okay.
that.
I think Perth, Australia is a bit of a shithole as well, I think.
I quite like it.
Is it?
Oh, right, okay. I've not been.
You're like, sounds shit.
Sounds it. Right, okay. So, right, I guess at that point, you'd be like, oh, maybe, you know, there might be like, oh, yeah, but still. It's the people who are into that. It's like the main argument against polyamory is polyamorous people.
A lot of mandalas.
A lot of mandalas, a lot of spreadsheets with polyamory. It's boring.
Oh,
But,
really?
like, well, yeah, you know, they just have to have conversations about everything all the time. It's a lot of admin. So it doesn't appeal to me.
Yeah, too much admin.
Exactly. You got to like plan in dates with all the different partners and stuff, and like.
I actually was chatting to a polyamorous guy, and like I didn't realize that he's polyamorous, and then he brought it up in the conversation, and I was like, okay, well, like I'm not really looking for that, and he was like, that's okay. He was like, a lot of people aren't, and to be honest, my girlfriend's going on a lot of dates, and I've not had one, and I was like, oh, that's such a wee shame that he's feeling like he's, and then we like stayed in touch and we're pals.
Oh, that's nice, but you've got to consider that before you open up your relationship. You've got to be really honest about who's the fit one in your relationship.
Yeah.
And who's much more likely to... Like, that's why I couldn't do it. I'd get competitive. I'd have to win. So I'd be like on Tinder fucking constantly, just in order to get my score up. And that's not a healthy way to approach anything.
No, that's it. There's always going to be one person who's a bit more polyamorous than the other, and, you know, you don't want to be the one in the losing end of that, as you say.
Especially if you're getting nothing. If you're like, right, we'll open our relationship up and, you know, we can both go on some exciting dates, and I'll be like, and essentially, yeah, your partner's just getting railed. We all just sat at home playing Minecraft. Like,
if you identify as polyamorous, you don't want to be living the life of an asexual. Do you know what I mean? Like the opposite end of the sexual spectrum.
Yeah, you've really fucked yourself, ironically.
See when it regards to this fucking submission, right? What I don't understand is, so he went there like 45 minutes after they started chatting, but what I don't understand is why was he just playing pool with Clive? Because surely did she not tell him it was a sex party?
Yeah, it sounds like he knew.
What was the like? Because surely if you get asked, is this party or this sex party, you turn up. You know, you turn up with your fucking. You know, if you go swimming, you turn up with your bathing suit on. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you go to the sex party, you know what I mean. You're not just standing at the side, watching everybody.
I think this guy's got him way in over his head. Is what has happened. He's thought like, oh, we'll go to this like sex party. Maybe we'll like, we'll get off a bit, and then maybe we'll meet like a couple, and we'll go in a room or something.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he's thinking. And they've walked in, and she's immediately been like, right, Dick's in here, and like. Everyone's crowded round, and he's gone, a bit rich for my blood. I think that's what's happened there, isn't it?
Yeah, I also just like the idea of, it's almost like playing pool is almost like, shall I just hold the drinks, guys? Cool, have fun. I'll just be at the side, just enjoy yourself,
Yeah.
Sure. Is there anybody get the sharpener for the cue? I'm not going to probably need it, to be honest.
Like, you won't want to, like, you want to make sure you got chalk. You don't want to, like, spike a ball, have it, like, bounce, and have to go pick it back. Sorry, can we have that cue ball back?
Chalk is very much the lube of pool, isn't it? We've run out of lube in here. Give us a chalk. Come on.
Like, it's weird to me that it's a rotating bed as well, because I know that's like a thing, like, like the rotating bed, but I don't get why dizziness is sexy. I don't get what the rotation adds to it. I guess if you're watching, you don't have you get all the angles. Is that it?
Yeah, it must be, but also, don't you think just generally with sex that there's all these things that can like aid sex? So like, you know, like a sex swing and all this kind of shit. How awkward would a sex swing be that you'd be like, okay, I'll pop on, you know?
I'll give you a leg up.
Give me a little leg up.
Give you a boost.
Yeah. So
What
it's like...
What I hate about the sex swing is when the kids get in and then they just wrap it around the bars, you know, you need to untangle it off.
I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah, we were all on that ride for a bit, weren't we?
Whoa, unacceptable.
No, I am with you when it comes to like apparatus. Like it's too much. I don't want like planning. I don't want logistics involved. You know, you're stopping the vibe surely by going like, right, I'm just going to go change out. I don't know. It's just a bit much for me. Like,
is a rotating bed? I thought he meant that like metaphorically, like there's a rotation in terms of the people who are on the bed. But
no, like the bed is
physically
rotating.
Moving.
Wow.
Yeah. You can see how many sex parties we've been to.
Yeah.
No, the only time I've seen a rotating bed in the wild was in like a peat booth in Amsterdam, right? And like my ex, we were on holiday in Amsterdam. She was like, "Oh, let's go into the peat booth," and like we did. And you like put €1 in a slot, and then like there's like a one-way glass thing, and there's like 8 booths around like a rotating bed in the middle where like a couple are just going at it like joylessly. Oh, God. But the problem is like the mirror. There's so many problems with it. Like the mirrors aren't one way for a start. You can totally see dudes like just going at themselves through the other mirrors, and the smell inside that booth is one of the worst things I've ever encountered. And bear in mind, I'm in Amsterdam. I am high as fuck at this point. Walking in, and you open the door, and you were just hit with a wall of hot old cum. And it was one of the least sexy experiences of my entire life.
That's disgusting. The phrase hot old cum, cherry on the cake there. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. That'll be a lovely soundbite for our Instagram.
I told Rob that's the only way of getting on this is you need to say the hot old cum bit. That's...
I wish I only had one.
Rob's touring next year. Rob, hot old cum Mulholland.
Oh, that's so horrible.
I'd love that if that became your calling card.
Like my thing. What like Jim Gaffigan's got his Hot Pockets bit. Mine's the hot old cum stuff. Do hot old cum.
I've outgrown hot old cum now. Come on.
But the people want to see it, man. The people want to see it.
Give the people what they want.
I'll just save it for an encore. I can only imagine that was an issue, though, in this guy's story. You know, you're confronted with the raw reality of a thing that you've only ever had as like a fantasy. It's not real. You know, you can gloss it up in your fantasy. You can make everyone gorgeous, and you can make the right ratio of men and women that you want, and the right age range, and you can have everything nice, and you don't have to smell it. But if you're there in this sketchy club in an industrial estate, suddenly it's very fucking real.
Totally. And I think as well, I think when things are sexy, so the idea of something being sexy, often it's not, I mean, it might be different. I don't know what you guys think. But I often think, like, when I think of something sexy, it's the anticipation of the sex that I imagine, and it's the moments leading up to it, and maybe that kind of forbiddenness of it, of being like, we shouldn't do this, but we are going to. And it's actually the moments before that, the actual it happening, especially if you're not involved, I would be like, oh, I actually need a little bit longer to feel the anticipation. So if you're just arriving with a little like bottle of wine, maybe some crisps,
and it's already mid-flow,
everyone's already completely in the middle of it, and you're just like, oh, I'm actually not there yet, then actually it would be really hard to be like, and imagine as well how awkward it would be to be like, oh, can I just move over? I'll just join in. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like, is there a queuing system? Because like,
wait, you're trying.
You get some time to warm up then.
You know, when you put a pound on the pool.
You have to take a ticket like in the bakery.
Yeah. It's like, oh, I'm number 69. I'm next. Whee!
But like, I imagine what's happened here, though. This is my guess: is that the ratio of men to women at sex clubs is fucked. It's like, it's like one woman for like 20 men.
Yeah.
So I think there's not been any women there. And I think there's been a load of blokes stood around with Clive playing pool, waiting. And then a woman has arrived who's into it, and they've all been like, fucking finally, get on the bed, let's get going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, she's delighted because that's what she's there for.
Yeah.
But then, there's not been the time for this. This guy's like, I thought we were going to talk.
Fucking him and Clive on the subs bench while the fucking rest of them.
Well, they've just got to do warm-ups, stretching at the pool table. Let's get going. You're on in 5, get ready.
The manager's calling for the dugout, right? Come on.
Right, get in there and don't fucking embarrass me, right?
Do you know what I thought was quite nice, though? That he still took the effort to be polite and say cheerio. He popped his head in the door, as if at that point he would still be... Yeah, that's me, as if he thought like she would be offended if he just like wasn't near him. Where did he go? How rude! This man. Not
he did one of these, like, well, that'll be me.
I think it would have just been one that they kind of like try to get someone's attention, like the wee wave. That's me. No, I've not
Reach
seen
over a
me,
bloke to tap her on the shoulder, like, I'm off.
Yeah, I think it's funny as well. So this guy listened to our podcast and listened to our shooting your shot. Do you know the term shooting your shot? Yeah, like your little going for it bit. And he listened to the podcast and then slid into my DMs. And then I was like, hi, I really like your podcast, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, thanks. And he was like, I think you're like nice. And I was like, oh, thank you. And then he was like, I've got lots of great stories. And I was like, could you send me them, please? And obviously, like, he's really nice and we've been chatting and stuff, but it is funny that I was just like, oh, that's a really good story. I might actually use that for the podcast. So it all worked out.
So he might be, so you might go on a date with this guy, is what you're saying?
Well, he's in Australia.
Well, what she's
But I
saying...
do know a good venue in Australia, should you need a date.
Little rotating bed.
You're going to take it to the best sex party in all of Perth, Western Australia.
Do you get any sort of motion sickness? We need to know this before you...
I'm like, no, I'm absolutely fine. It's actually cool. Got to take my little sickness tablet.
That is a corker, though, to be fair. Like, good story, but yeah, fucking hell.
Yeah,
I mean,
brutal.
But, as a memorable date.
And also,
is it a date? Are we counting that as a date? Does that count? You accompanied someone to get banged. I don't know if that is going on a date with someone. That's being friend zoned, isn't it? You got friend zoned with Clive.
He had more of a date with Clive, So we game a pool. Yeah.
I'd love it if that was the story, that those guys became like just good mates. Like the same thing had happened to both of them. Like, just thought we're on a date.
Then they're like, how did you guys meet? Well, it's a funny story, actually.
Oh, that's really sweet. I find male friendships so they just get me in the feels. Like I'm like, and they just really love each other, and it's really sweet. I've actually
why it's hard to make them.
Oh, really?
Because it's kind of gay, isn't it, to be friends with a man?
No, it's beautiful.
I'm joking. But there is that little bit of the little bit of toxic masculinity at the back of your brain that when you're if you meet a guy that you like, especially it's like a bloke in your 30s, and you've got to be like, do you maybe want to watch the football or some time? It's just a really vulnerable, weird moment.
Yeah, it's nice though. It is awkward making friends as an adult, and you're just like, oh, I hope they know that I have other friends.
Yeah.
But it's nice you've got football as your universal language for the most part, because
this is what it is.
Yeah.
That's what football is for us. It's it's our shorthand. For everyone who's a football fan, it's like a real quick social shorthand. It means that I can have a conversation with a taxi driver, a barber, just anyone. You can go to that level. You don't have to talk about your feelings. You can just talk about the game. You've both got that shared experience.
Oh, totally.
Absolutely. I've always thought that's what the royal family is a wee bit for British people as well, because it's
Tory people.
Not even for that, but just in general, because you think about what do you talk about when you go and visit your granny, your auntie, or whatever, or even your parents? It's all about what your aunties and uncles and all that and cousins are all doing, because that's like a shared family. So like the royal family is this universal family that the whole of Britain have got to like gossip about. Oh, did you see what that Harry's done now? And that Philip's about to die. Do you know that? Like, oh, it's a universal. It's like it is like what football is for guys. It's like that equivalent for everybody in Britain. But obviously, there's a whole part of the family who go, I don't give a fuck about them. They're a bunch of arseholes, if you ask me.
Yeah. There's not like people in my family that I want to see guillotined. Right? And there's fewer pedos in my family, to be honest with you.
Snap! It's nice, isn't it?
Everyone's got that one dodgy uncle, Rob. Do you know what I mean? Basically, I had this date. Right? The first date itself actually was fine, kinda. Right? It was this girl. She'd been to see my show at the Fringe. She added us on social media afterwards. Got messaging. I was like, "Oh, do you want to go for a drink?" So we went for a drink. A couple of nights later, go for a drink. Everything's fine. Go back to her place, and we hook up. Right? She was quite adamant about not wanting me to wear a condom, right? And she wasn't on any contraception, and I was like, look, I'm always quite careful with that sort of thing, and I'm like, look, I'm going to do that. This mad to do it. That's why there's statistics, that high pregnancy rates and all that sort of stuff for people.
You're a better man than me, Mark.
Well, I just didn't want to.
He's
take
got a
that
real
risk,
fear
right?
about it as well. It's his little thing.
I've got a big fear about it, right? But she was
I'm all roll the dice, like.
Worth it, mate. I've got 3 kids.
So was she, right? She's very roll the dice, and I wasn't. So we ended up, I ended up wearing one and whatever. And then there was one night she was at a party and she came over to mine and she was wanting to do it again, and I didn't make the mistake. Didn't have any condoms, and I was like, look, I'm not going to have sex. And she kind of like, I had a bit of a hard time getting her to leave, right? Because she was just being a bit sort of abrasive, I would say, right? And I was like, God, can you? I just ended up saying, look, just go down the road. Like, let's not, this I shouldn't have invited you over, sort of thing, right? So she eventually did leave, and then so I was like, right, I'm never obviously speaking to her again. And she texted me like the next day, and I remember like waking up in my bed and like reading the text and going back to sleep. And then by the time I woke up again, she'd seen that I'd left her on read and was like, oh, fuck you, blah, blah, blah. So I just thought, oh, well, I guess I don't need to respond now at all. So it gets towards, like, there's the last Thursday of the Fringe, right? I'm doing this show, free Fringe. I had somebody doing my door, so the crowd were in and stuff. So I'm about 2/3 of the way through the show. There's a bit of commotion at the back of the room. Somebody's phone goes off. And I was like, is everything okay? And they kind of didn't respond. And I thought, sometimes people maybe that don't even speak in English wander into the wrong show. I sort of thought that might be happening. And so I just kind of moved on. And because it took me off track, I ended up telling a story from that day, right? I'd been to see somebody else's show. And during the show, they were talking about ghosting, right? And they were saying, oh, does anyone know what ghost? They said to the audience, they went, does anyone not know what ghosting is, right? And there's this wee old man in the corner, and he like put his hand up like he didn't know, and he's like, my wife's a ghost, is that what it is? Like, that's what we were like joking that he might be thinking, right? And the performer never seen moved on, so I sort of just told that story on stage because I'd got sort of off track, and it just happened, it was in my mind. Next thing you know, after I tell that story, commotion at the back of the room again, fuck you! And I get sprayed with water from a water pistol. Like, they sprayed me. The water just flew by me.
What room are we in at Edinburgh, by the way?
So this was a place called Black Market that was right next to the station, right? It was a wee shitty...
Oh, yeah, so that's a really small room.
Small room, right? Like, wee 40-seater capacity. I couldn't see the back of the room because it was quite dark.
Because the lighting and stuff, yeah.
But, the whole time I could sort of see a vague outline of them, right? And I sort of looked like a guy with a goatee and long hair, but like sunglasses or something as well, right? Anyway, like, so that I get sprayed with this water pistol. The water actually just goes by me and hits like the back of the wall, right? And I'm like, oh my God. And like they run out after that. And so I'm standing there with the audience, and the audience are going, oh my God, what the hell just happened? And so am I. And I was like, I was trying to say to the people that were sitting next to them, I was like, what was their deal? And they were like, oh, they were being weird the whole show, blah, blah, blah. So I just do the rest of the show, wrap up, and because it's like a free show at the end, you do the bucket speech asking for money. And so I was like jokingly saying to the crowd, like, oh, like, try and give me money because I need to pay those people to come every day and spray me with water, like it's part of the show.
Yeah.
But I was like, I can't believe that was insane, right? So I go down to the bar and speak to the bar staff and the security after. I'm like, you'll never believe what just happened to me in my show. Like, somebody came in and sprayed me with a water pistol, and the bouncer was like, oh, they're just outside. Somebody outside with a water pistol. So I go out, and obviously it's that lassie, right, who I didn't text back. And so I walk up to her and I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? And she was like, pure steaming, right? And she's like, you never text me back. And I was like, well, this kind of behaviour is basically why. And I was like, right, God. And it turns out they'd bought like fake goatees and sunglasses and like,
wow.
In case I seen them. And they'd done that,
crazy.
and they get drunk and came along to my show to spray me with water. And I was like, what the fuck? And she's like, buy us a drink, right? So I'm like, right. Went and bought them a drink. She gave me the water pistol, and I went, right, take it easy, see you later. And I've never seen her since. But I've still got the water pistol.
What kind of, when you say water pistol, are we talking like Super Soaker or
like it's like a small version that you would buy, like a wee kind of novel. Like, probably
you get from the corner shop.
Yeah, exactly. One of those ones, yeah. And but that's probably the maddest thing that's ever happened to me on stage.
Sounds like you should have texted her back, mate. That's marriage material right there. The amount of effort she's gone to, disguises, that's fun. That's a fun partner trait, isn't it?
She's not boring.
Disguises, random violence.
Yeah. The only thing that would have really sealed the deal is if she bottled someone right after it, I think.
That is full cuckoo bananas, though. Dressing in a disguise. Surely there's some point when you're like attaching your fake beard where you're like, is this a bit much?
But isn't it that kind of thing of being like, we're so wacky? Like, she'll have been with the girls, they'll maybe have been having a drink and been like, this is just us being
you go
fun.
To a show and you spray them with a water pistol.
You do you, girl, okay? Like...
And this is why women are bad friends, because men would go, what the fuck are you doing?
We're enablers.
Yeah.
The thing I've always wondered as well is, like, because it was quite near the end of the show that it happened, and they only done it after I talked about that ghosting story that happened by chance, only said by chance. So I wonder whether they might not have done it, but then that spurred them on, like, oh, he's rubbing it in our face that he ghosted us.
Waiting for Summit, though. There's going to be something that kicks that off.
I think if you have a gun, you're much more likely to use it. And I think we need to remember that.
Gun,
Chekhov's water pistol, isn't it? Yeah.
It's just on a lone seat waiting to be used.
So I think that about covers it for Bad Dates. We'd like to thank our fantastic guest today, Rob Mulholland, for joining us. Rob, where can people find you online?
Best place is probably my YouTube. It's Rob Mulholland Comedy. If you just search for that on YouTube, you'll find me. I've got loads of stuff on there. I've got like stand-up specials and podcasts and clips and all sorts of shit. I do a podcast with my mate Mickey P. Curry, you might know of Britain's Got Talent as well, called Fool's Gold, where me and him talk fucking shit. So if you like, everyone's bored, innit? If you need to fill an hour and a half with some funny nonsense, Fool's Gold.
Excellent. Definitely check it out. Rob's got some brilliant videos up there. And if you have enjoyed today's episode, please do subscribe and give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, or wherever lets you leave a review. You can subscribe to us and find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And there is also a YouTube version that's available on YouTube. Just in case you're unclear about where you might find the YouTube version, it is actually on youtube.com.
And if you'd like to slide into our DMs, we're on Instagram at Debating Dating. And if you have any interesting stories, dating stories, what you'd like us to chat about, any topics that you'd like us to cover, or any mad stories, then send us a wee voice note on Debating Dating's Instagram, or you can also send it on our email, which is debatingdatingpod@gmail.com.
So, thanks very much for listening, and we'll speak to you soon.
Bye!